I'm honestly a little bit terrified to hold them all together because they're a lot and I don't want to harm any of them, but I just want to show you what 19 books look like. Hello my friends, my name is Bella. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the 19 books that I read in the month of September. We've got some classics, some middle grades, some poetry, manga, romance, a little bit of everything, and I am so excited to talk to you guys about them because I feel like I had a really good reading month. Earlier on in the month, I actually said that September was going to be my most successful reading month of the year, and even though that wasn't the case, because apparently there was one month where I read 25 books. How am I supposed to top that? Anyways, even though this wasn't my most successful reading month, I'm still really happy with all of the books that I read because it was just such an amazing reading month and I read so many amazing books that I can't wait to talk to you guys about. But before we can, I just wanted to take a second to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Book of the Month. I am so happy to be working with them again because their selection of books just keeps getting better and better, and they're my favorite place to learn about new books and try out different authors. So I'm so happy that I get to talk to you guys about them. Book of the Month is a super popular and fast-growing online book service for readers just like you and me. Their mission is to promote new and emerging authors and help readers discover books that we are bound to love. They are also risk-free. You can skip any month at any time and you will not be charged. Book of the Month has the best price for new released hardcover fiction. You can get your first book for just $9.99 using the code TREAT. I actually have some really exciting news to share, and it is that Book of the Month is now going to be shipping to Canada. So my Canadian viewers, if you've always wanted to give Book of the Month a try, now is the perfect time. They also have a podcast that's called The Virtual Book Tour, where they talk with the authors of the books that they feature, and it's these really interesting conversations that talk about the craft, the writing style, how they found this story, their inspirations, any fun little stories that they have about the book, and it's just a really wonderful and entertaining podcast. The books that I chose for the month of October were The Kiss Curse, written by Erin Sterling, which is actually a sequel to The Ex-Hex. I also chose Thistlefoot, written by Jenna Rose Nethercott, a sweeping epic rich in Eastern European folklore. Head on over to bookofthemonth.com to get your first book for only $9.99 using the code TREAT. Once again, thank you to Book of the Month for sponsoring this video, and without further ado, let's get into the 19 books that I read in the month of September. I'm honestly a little bit terrified to hold them all together because they're a lot and I don't want to harm any of them, but I just want to show you what 19 books look like. I actually don't own all 19 books, so I don't have 19 books right now. But yeah, this is approximately what 19 books would look like. I started my month off very strong by listening to the audiobook of I'm Glad My Mom Died, written by Jeanette McCurdy. I feel like if you've been on booktube or social media in general, you know or you've seen this book somehow. It's been everywhere. It took the world by storm, and it's this memoir written by Jeanette McCurdy. She is one of the stars of iCarly. She's also been in Sam and Cat, and basically she's one of those Nickelodeon stars. This time around, she's written a book about her life, specifically her childhood, and how she was basically forced into becoming a child star. In this book, Jeanette explores all of the abuse, both emotional and physical and also vocal, that she had to go through because of her mother and how this has affected her throughout her life. Some of the events that have gone on, she does go into quite a lot of detail, talking about her eating disorders and her anxiety disorders and also her depression. So it's definitely not a lighthearted book. It's not a cozy read. It's not a lighthearted read. It's deep and dark, and sometimes it's hard to get through, but I feel like it was such a beautiful book because I just couldn't stop reading. Like when I started it, I could not put it down, especially because the audiobook is narrated by Jeanette herself. So that just makes the experience 1,000 times more shocking and more personal. I know it's kind of weird to describe a book that's so dark and talks about such heavy topics as beautiful, but that's what it is, because this is her way of healing. This is her way of coming to terms with her lost childhood and everything that she had to go through. Like, this is her way of processing things, and she is so honest and open about everything, and it was just such an amazing book. This is one of the best memoirs and nonfiction books that I've ever read, and it was just astounding. It was beautiful. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Completely blew my mind, and I would definitely recommend this to anyone, but please make sure to look at the trigger warnings, because it can be pretty triggering if you're not prepared for what's about to go down. The next 3 books that I read were actually for an experiment that I did on my channel. I was reading some popular Instagram books, and it's these 3 books. The first one being The Woman Destroyed, written by Simone de Beauvoir, Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton, and finally Conversations with Friends, written by Sally Rooney. I have this whole video dedicated to these 3 books, so I won't go into much detail about them. If you're interested to see my very emotional journey with these books, I will leave the link up here if you're interested. This is a collection of 3 short stories in which we're following 3 very different women who are going through very personal crises. Their world is basically falling apart, and I think that going into the psyche of these women and sort of trying to understand what they're going through, like, they're not crazy, they're not unhinged. This is just years and years of repressed emotions and having to deal with everything just blowing up in your face, everything that you thought was true sort of crumbling down to nothing. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm very interested to keep reading more works by Simone de Beauvoir because I just really love her voice. I love how she writes, and I love how she creates these multifaceted characters, so I'll definitely be reading more from her in the future. Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton, I gave 4 out of 5 stars, and I really enjoyed this. This was kind of like a plot twist because I actually DNF'd this at page 63. And then because I was reading it for an experiment, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna push through. And then in page 67, I bawled my eyes out. So it's like, you never really know what a book has in store for you. And now I'm sort of rethinking every single book that I've ever DNF'd. Like, is one of my favorite books hiding in a pile of just DNF'd books? This made me think about a lot of things, and I think that this is a perfect book for the people that are currently in their 20s. If you're feeling like you have no direction in life and you just want someone to comfort you and hug you and tell you that it's okay and tell you that you're not alone in feeling lost, this book is great for that. And then, you know, the most disappointing one of the bunch, Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. Since I loved Normal People, I thought I would love Conversations with Friends, but that was not the case. Not at all. It wasn't hard to get through. I think I read this in like a day because this story does reel you in, it does suck you in, and you are interested in what's happening to these characters. But at the end of the day, when the book was over, I was just like, thank God. Thank God I don't have to read this book ever again. Thank God this is over. And it was very disappointing because, of course, coming from Normal People, I thought this was going to be yet another favorite book. And when I realized that it wasn't, it was hard to accept. The next book that I read was Mary Jane, written by Jessica Anya Blau. And this is a book that I've just been seeing randomly on my Instagram, and it looked really interesting. It kind of gave me some Daisy Jones and the Six type of vibes, but I couldn't have been more wrong. I don't know what I was expecting from this book, but it definitely wasn't what I got. We're following this girl. She's 14 years old, and she's been raised as this very conservative, very religious kind of girl. You know, she's not very outspoken. She doesn't really know who she is because her mother doesn't really let her explore that. Until one summer comes along and she's babysitting this little kid from another family. This family is very different from her own. They have a very different set of values and morals, and they're a lot more lax on rules. They're basically the polar opposite of what Mary Jane has grown up with, so having to spend the summer with this completely opposite family, she sort of starts to find out who she is, and she starts to explore different facets of life. She starts to meet all of these different types of people, and she starts to understand that life isn't all about praying and helping your mom out with chores. She starts to become her own person, and it was interesting, it was entertaining. I will say the writing at times, it kind of took me out of the story. I could never really fully immerse myself with these characters and feel myself living these experiences. It was a nice way to spend the time, I guess. I wouldn't recommend it and I wouldn't reread it, but I did give this 3 out of 5 stars, and it's not that I was bored. I don't know. It was a weird book. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about this one, but there we go. I read Mary Jane. Wouldn't do it again. Days had passed and I was still thinking about I'm glad my mom died. So I decided to look for some memoirs or some books that kind of talked about the same experiences, or just I was trying to find memoirs that spoke about hard-hitting topics and things that I don't usually read. Like, I really wanted to just expand my comfort zone and read something that I would otherwise never pick up. That is how I found Know My Name, written by Chanel Miller. Oh my god. This book was incredible. It was one of the best things that I've read this whole year, and I'm not a fan of memoirs, I'm not a fan of nonfiction, but this month I've read 3 nonfiction books and they have all been so incredible. But I think that Know My Name takes the cake. Chanel Miller was known to the world as Emily Doe in a case of sexual assault, but in Know My Name, Chanel Miller reclaims her identity and she speaks to us about her trauma. I don't think I have the appropriate words to explain how this book marked me and how it just shocked me to my core, because I had never read a book like this, and as soon as I started it, it was so hard to put down, because again, this audiobook is narrated by the author, so it just gives you this sense of connectiveness, and it just feels very personal, because it just feels like Chanel is speaking to you like I am to you right now. And it was at times so hard to listen to, because she goes into gritty details about her assault and everything that she had to go through, the way that society responded, the way that people turned their backs on her, the way that the justice system did her wrong. But at the end of the day, it's just such an important story, and the journey that you take with Chanel Miller is indescribable, and I loved this book. It was so hard. Once again, it was hard to get through. It was heavy, but if you can read this, I would highly recommend it, because it is one of the greatest memoirs that I think I will ever have the honor of reading. So 100% I would recommend Know My Name. Then I was really struggling with life. You know what I mean? And when you're struggling, you kind of like to go back to your favorite books or your comfort books, because it reminds you of simpler times in your life, and it gives you, it's like being wrapped up in a warm blanket and being told that everything is going to be okay. So I decided to reread books 3 and 4 of Harry Potter. The Prisoner of Azkaban, my favorite Harry Potter book. Hi, hello, I don't make the rules. This is the best one. And The Goblet of Fire. So I reread both of these, and then I saw the movies. So as you can see, I was kind of like really trying my best to make myself feel better. I just really needed some comfort reads. September was also full of rain in terms of weather, so I read these when it was super rainy, super cloudy. I even had some thunderstorms at one point, so I feel like the atmosphere was just perfect for this. And I really enjoy Harry Potter. Like, I don't think I'm saying anything new. I'm definitely not the only one. And these coming months are definitely like the perfect time to reread Harry Potter. So I just needed some comfort in my life, so I found them in Harry Potter. Then I read this horror manga that was actually recommended to me by one of my Discord members, and it is called Ayesha's Secret. It has 2 volumes. It's very interesting. It goes by super fast, and it's about this girl. It kind of gives me Cinderella, but make it gory and make it horrific type of vibes. It's about this girl who loses her dad and now she has to live with her stepmother and her really evil stepbrothers, but something starts going on and really horrible things start happening and things stop making sense. The way that it was drawn was very scary. Yes, I will give you that. I did read this like from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. so I feel like I read it at the perfect time, as well with thunderstorms in the background. It was just like I created this perfect atmosphere to read these horror mangas, and they were enjoyable. I think it went by too fast for me to like really create this connection with the characters, but overall I enjoyed it. I gave both of them 3 stars, and if you're looking for any weird independent sort of horror manga to read this coming October, you could give these a try. Then I read what is my most recent favorite classic. It is written by Jane Austen. My mom, I love you. I read Sense and Sensibility, written by Jane Austen, and apparently this book isn't loved by many, which I find so weird because I've read almost every Jane Austen book now. I'm only missing Emma. Fingers crossed I'm going to read it before the year ends. But Sense and Sensibility, I loved it. I loved the characters. I love the progression of the story. I love the development of the characters. I love that it's really a story about sisters, and it's a story about family and how far you're willing to go for your family and how unconditional the love truly is. But we also have some sprinkles of romance, and of course with every Jane Austen novel we're also exploring how money affects the relationships that we have between people and between potential husbands. And I just think that Sense and Sensibility is one of Jane Austen's best works. This is also her very first novel. Like, Jane Austen never disappoints, and I just love her so much. Jane Austen just does such a good job at writing characters that feel human, and they feel like someone that you can know in your own personal life, and the things that they go through are so humane. The life lessons and the things that Jane Austen talks about in her books, no matter what time period it is, it matters. There's just some kind of magic there that I don't know how to explain, but I really loved Sense and Sensibility. Amazing Jane Austen novel, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Yes. Then I read another classic, which was The Letters of Vincent van Gogh. Look at all of these annotations. Look at that, my dude. I love how it looks. I will be honest, this kind of burst my bubble a little bit because these letters, written of course by Vincent van Gogh, they were all directed to Theo, which is his brother. And if you know a little bit about Vincent van Gogh, then you know that he had a very close connection to Theo. But through these letters, you can see a little bit of Vincent's selfishness and the way that he kind of manipulated Theo, both emotionally and also emotionally. As we all know, Vincent was poor. He struggled a lot with maintaining a certain lifestyle because he wasn't selling any of his paintings and he didn't have any normal jobs that he could fall back on, so he depended on his brother for his economic survival. A lot of these letters are just centered around his struggles with money, like just constantly talking about, hey, can you send me some 20 francs? Like, I'm low on money, can you just send it over? And I think I was expecting a more like poetic side to Vincent, but he really is all about the money, isn't he? Which obviously I understand. I'm not complaining. I'm not looking down on him for focusing on money and, you know, feeling sad because his paintings aren't being appreciated. Obviously, I understand that. The few quick glances that we got of his heart and his sentiments and his emotions, those were my favorite bits of the story. And it's such a shame because when he goes through the periods of deep depression and all of the struggles and things that he had to go through, he never actually talks about them. He just stops writing, which again makes sense because you don't really want to relive all of your horrible moments and just write them in a letter and send them to your brother. I don't know. Like, it was, in a sense, enjoyable. It wasn't my favorite thing, but there are a few phrases that kind of left me like, clutching my chest and just rereading over and over again. He does have some very interesting advice on life and love and painting and pursuing your creativity even though people around you don't believe in you. I think there are some very important tips and advice that he gives us, but overall it was a little bit, you know, it dragged a little bit. It wasn't the most enjoyable of reads, and it definitely like dimmed my mood. Yeah, it kind of made me a bit depressed as well. So kudos to Vincent for doing that. I have a more or less irresistible passion for books and the constant need to improve my mind, to study if you like, just as I have a need to eat bread. I actually didn't know that Vincent loved reading and books so much, and there are some letters that he just dedicates to talking about his favorite authors and his favorite books, and he's just recommending Theo some of his favorite passages and quotes, and I just rip Vincent van Gogh because I feel like he would have been a great booktuber, and it just sucks that we're never gonna get to see that. The most disappointing book of September was definitely the poetry collection that I read, which was Dearly, written by Margaret Atwood. I don't know how to explain it, but I just had a really hard time understanding what Margaret Atwood was talking about. Of course, I didn't struggle with all of the poems, like I wasn't completely lost, but the ones that I did understand, I was just like, yeah, I didn't connect to any of the poems in this collection, and I think that reading poetry is a very personal experience. Maybe someone reads this and they're like, this is the best collection of poetry that I've ever laid my eyes on. But for me, maybe I haven't experienced these things in life, or I don't connect to the world the same way that Margaret Atwood does, so I just struggled a little bit in enjoying this poetry collection, which was a shame. Like, I really wanted to enjoy this, but I didn't, so I ended up giving this 1.5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I'm really sad that I didn't enjoy this, but maybe someone else will. Maybe. I don't think so, but hey, anything is possible. I don't want to talk about these next 2 books for too long because I might start crying. In September, I actually finished my favorite manga series of all time, and it is Fullmetal Alchemist, volume 17, look at him, wow, and volume 18. I read these on stream with my Patreons. We were doing a 12-hour readathon. I finished this on camera and I was crying. I tried to keep it in so much, but it just got so overwhelming. It was like this overwhelming sense of happiness but also sadness. There was a lot of suffering and having to come to terms with the fact that there is not another new volume of Fullmetal Alchemist to collect. It just really hit me right then and there, and it was like the end of an era, and it hurt so much. But at the same time, I was so happy because this series means so much to me, and getting to read these books and getting to collect these editions, it just made me really happy, and I love this story. Fullmetal Alchemist will forever and always be my favorite manga and my favorite anime. It means the absolute world to me. And if you've never read this, I would highly recommend it. It's a story about brothers and the fact that they would go till the ends of the world for each other. It's about alchemy, it's about love, it's about saving the world from people that are trying their very hardest to destroy humanity. And it's about so many things, but at the end of the day, I don't know, it's just about love. Then I read volumes 3 and 4 of Attack on Titan omnibus versions. Look at them. Look at these babies. Oh my god, they are gorgeous. The story inside, just as gorgeous. I am so happy that I'm collecting these omnibus versions because they're stunning and they're so easy to read. Like, sometimes I struggle with manga because they can be a little bit like tight in the spine and I don't want to break them, but these are so easy to read, and that makes for a much more comfortable and easier reading experience. And like the floppiness, come on now that I'm making my way through the manga, I like really want to start watching the anime again. I know that the final season, or part 2 of the final season, is gonna come out next year, so maybe I'll time it just perfectly so that I rewatch the whole thing in time for the final part to come out. And hopefully I'll also be done with the manga by then, but these were just glorious. Both of them 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend if you're looking for a high stakes fantasy action-packed manga. 10 out of 10. Then I read The American Roommate Experience, written by Elena Armas. This is a companion novel to The Spanish Love Deception, and in this one we're following Rosie, which is Catalina's best friend, and Catalina's cousin, which is called Lucas. And yeah, it's them. It's them. Rosie is actually a romance author and she's struggling to write her novel. But then Lucas comes in and they start this sort of experiment where they fake date and they go on these very beautiful, very fun, very steamy dates. You know, fake, of course, like they could never fall in love with each other. They're just fake dating. They're just really good friends. So we have the fake dating trope. We have the one bed trope. We have so many wonderful tropes that make romance books so enjoyable. And even though I did have a really fun time reading this, there were a few times that I just found a little bit cringy, and I'm so sorry to say that, but okay, Spanish is my first language, and Lucas, of course, he's from Spain. And Rosie, when Lucas speaks in Spanish, she's like, oh, that is so sexy. But Lucas is literally talking about food. Lucas starts saying just random foods in Spanish and Rosie's like, oh my god, that is so hot, oh my god. And I just tried to imagine somebody trying to flirt with me with Dominican cuisine, like, ay mami, te gusta el mango con salami? And I just couldn't take it, and I couldn't take this seriously, and it kind of ruined the vibe for me. It kind of like broke the romance bubble that I was in. And I just found it a little bit cringy, I'm so sorry. And like, I just kept thinking, you know, plátano maduro, queso frito, and I'm like, how is that? This is not good, boss. So yeah, that was very funny. But overall, I did enjoy this book. I ended up giving this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I do prefer The Spanish Love Deception, but this does have some really cute moments, and I love the whole roommate experiment. I really love that trope, if you didn't realize by now. And the character development is also kind of nice, and the way that it all wraps up at the end, I did tear up just because I am a romantic at heart. I am a hopeless romantic, so this book kind of checked a lot of my boxes. And finally, the last book that I read was These Fleeting Shadows, written by Kate Alice Marshall. This was actually my September Patreon buddy read. I have this whole reading vlog dedicated to this book. I actually ended up giving this 3.5 out of 5 stars. This book was very reminiscent of The Haunting of Hill House, Knives Out, Gallant by V.E. Schwab, and also Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. It's just like a really nice mixture of horror, atmospheric, spooky books. So I really enjoyed this book, but I think that the characters weren't fleshed out as much as I wished they were. And characters are a big thing for me. If you don't have some good character development or good character arcs, I'm gonna have a hard time giving it a high rating. I mean, 3.5 is a good rating, but yeah. Like, I really enjoyed the writing. I loved how atmospheric it was. I love that I read it while it was super rainy and cloudy outside, and I had the perfect Tim Burton playlist on the background. Like, the vibes were all there. So I had a really fun time reading this. I think the writing was also stupendous. I kind of want to try more books by this author, because if this is what she can come up with, I want to see what else she can do with that brain of hers. Like, she must have done a deal with the devil or something, because her writing is really good. Those are all of the books that I read in the month of September. I cannot believe I read 19 books. That is just like, good job me, a pat in the back. If you're also proud of me, leave this emoji in the comments below to show your support, and let me know how your reading month went. Let me know how many books you read. Let me know if you found any new favorite books, or were there any books that you kind of wish you hadn't read. Let me know all in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I love every single one of you, and if you want more from me, if you want more exclusive content and some exclusive reading vlogs, then my Patreon will be down below. Thank you so much for subscribing, liking, commenting, and hitting that notification bell. It really helps a lot, and I really appreciate it. So once again, thank you all so much. I love you all, and I will see you next time. Bye!
Hey Jimmy, you nice. Keep going.